Now I'd like to introduce Dr. Kirsten Schwarz, who is an urban ecologist. And as such, she is engaging with themes such as lead in the soil and the patterning of these events or human patterning, probably, and as well as tree canopy and social justice. And she is involved in a lot of community engaged initiatives on green infrastructure, and I'm very much looking forward to hearing from her. Thank you.
Good afternoon. It's really a pleasure to be with all of you today. Thank you for sticking it out for the very last panel of the afternoon. And thanks to the organizers. It's really been a pleasure to hear about all of the really exciting work being done at Fielding and really inspiring to continue on the theme of building a healthier future together. So I am an urban ecologist. I have a joint appointment in the Fielding School, Environmental Health Sciences, and also in urban planning. And as an urban ecologist, my research interests are really at the intersection of environment, health, and equity. Really recognizing that in many ways, our health depends on the health of our ecosystems, right? And these environmental systems hold tremendous capacity to build climate resilience. But as we heard earlier in the health equity panel, the benefits that we receive from environmental systems, we often refer to these as ecosystem services, are not equally distributed, and neither are the burdens. So my earlier research really focused on documenting these inequities. We've documented the incredible disparities in tree canopy cover across United States cities, showing that higher incomes are often associated with greater canopy. That is canopy that helps us mitigate extreme heat and intercept particulates. We've also documented patterns of soil contamination in cities. You can see on the right panel of this slide. It's a known environmental justice concern and one that really compromises our soil systems that again hold the capacity to sequester carbon, to intercept stormwater runoff, and form the foundation of our food systems. So in more recent work, I've been interested in what are the ways that we can address those inequities? What are effective strategies towards sustainable solutions? This is work from Newport, Kentucky. It's a small river city. And like many in the region, it struggles with combined sewer overflows. So stormwater and sewage are carried in the same piped systems. And during really large storms, we often see that those systems are overwhelmed. And that means that we have untreated sewage that's being discharged into the Ohio River, which is a drinking water source for the area. So unsurprisingly, water quality is a concern of the community, and so is access to green space. So in this project, which was called Strategic Depaving, we proposed to address those community identified needs of water quality and access to green space through identifying impervious areas in the neighborhood, removing them, and replacing them with community designed green infrastructure. So the outcome of this project was a community designed green infrastructure project, one that we hope addresses those community identified concerns, again, of water quality and access to green space. But what I really wanted to highlight here, what I think is really critically important, is the process of doing that work. So the process, I think, is what really mattered, the process of engaging communities in the scoping and development of this work, in the implementation and the evaluation of this project. And I think it's the process that has really enabled the work to continue. So there's a Strategic Depaving 2.0, where our community partners continue to work with the City of Newport to remove impervious surfaces and replace it with green infrastructure. So I've aspired to apply that community-centered approach with my work in LA as well. This is the Healthy Soils for Healthy Communities project. It's a collaborative project with a local nonprofit called Tree People. And as part of that project, we've worked to understand what communities in LA that are active in urban soil work value and prioritize in terms of research and action. And this really lays the foundation for future soil work in the region. And so you can see here what was identified through community focus groups. These are the priorities. Folks would like to see accessible and transparent soil data and testing, effective community engagement and streamlined communication, work that centers underserved communities, and building those alliances among different communities, including policy folks, businesses, and science professionals. Fielding students have been a critical component of this work. This is research completed by Nicole Fernandez-Vina. She is a recent graduate of our MPH program. And during her time here at UCLA, she worked on the Healthy Soils for Healthy Communities project. She was really interested in how have communities been engaged in urban soil pollution research and what processes have resulted in change. So she completed a literature search, she identified relevant studies, and then she assessed their community engagement methods through an existing tool. So that's what you're seeing up here on the slide. This is the spectrum of community engagement to ownership. It allowed her to look at the research studies, look at the methods that they were using, and see how it aligned with their community engagement goals. And what she found is studies that tended to engage communities on the right side of the spectrum were more effective in terms of community change. So studies that engaged communities through things like involvement, delegating power, deferring to communities, they more often mention structural change as part of their work, including things like securing funding for remediation, creating plans to improve environmental conditions, and greater community agency. So one final project that I'd like to share is Heat Resilient LA. David laid the foundation here that heat is a major equity issue in LA. The number of extreme heat days is expected to increase. Heat can be deadly. Shade is not evenly distributed. A recent urban forest equity report found that nearly 20% of the tree canopy in LA is concentrated in just 4 neighborhoods where less than 1% of the city's population resides. And in a changing world, I would argue that shade goes far beyond an amenity or something that's nice to have and instead represents critical infrastructure, something we all need access to. So the goal of Heat Resilient LA is to co-design cooling solutions in the places that need it most. It's a large interdisciplinary team. We bring together folks from across campus in materials science, public health, urban planning, law, and policy. The idea is to collectively harness the knowledge within the academy, knowledge within communities across LA to co-design passive cooling structures. So to do that, we have 2 immediate questions to answer: where the structures will go and what they will look like. So where the structures will go is informed by our conversation with folks in neighborhoods on their experience of extreme heat, as well as our analysis of cell phone mobility data that tells us where and when people move around the neighborhood on high heat days. And the design of the interventions incorporates radiative cooling technology with, again, community feedback on design preferences and the experiences of the prototypes that have been developed. So my take-home message that I wanted to share with all of you today is that the process of how we do our science matters. And I think that that process is changing to address environmental grand challenges. So this is from a recent NSF report on the potential of engaged research to address environmental grand challenges. And processes like engaged research value meaningful collaboration among scientists and non-scientists They explicitly recognize that science alone is not sufficient to ask the right questions or enable new discoveries or translate those discoveries to meaningful solutions. And I think that we've heard today throughout these talks, often people that are most impacted by environmental change are excluded from decision-making processes and from designing solutions. And through some of the work that I've shared here today, we're hoping to change some of that, recognizing that if our solutions are not aligned with community need, we really miss an opportunity to build just and sustainable climate-resilient futures. I just wanted to say thank you for celebrating with us today. I look forward to the conversations and working with all of you to build a healthier future together. And I shared one of my favorite quotes from Jane Jacobs, that cities have the capacity of providing something for everybody only because and only when they are created by everybody.